Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Scotland and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last few years. They are still a relatively new addition to the Scottish beer scene, but in their short lifetime they have built up a very, very good reputation for themselves. If people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, but in recent times they have been doing a few other styles as well, some sour beers, some lagers and some imperial stouts, and they've been pretty damn solid as well, I have to say. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I haven't tried from these guys before, if memory serves me correctly, but this one is supposed to be a really nice example of that style, and it is a style that I quite enjoy as well. So, needless to say, I'm really curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head over to Glasgow once again, a little bit to the west of me here in Clackmannanshire, and we're going to go to Yoker to be precise, and that means that we're going to have a look at yet another beer from the wonderful Overtone Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Czech Yersel. It comes in at 4.5% ABV, and this one is a Pilsner lager. So yeah, this should be quite interesting. We did have a Helles lager from these guys before, and I think I might have had another lager from them at some point too. But this is a fairly recent release from them, and I have heard very good things about it. But as you know, if you've watched the channel for any length of time, I'm a huge fan of my German and Czech style lagers. So when I saw Overtone were doing one of these, I thought it could be quite interesting to take a look at this one. So yeah, let's crack on then and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Overtone Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there if you want to see more reviews. Do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Scottish playlist along with a number of other things, and you can of course check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Overtone Brewing. So Overtone, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Glasgow. And the company was founded back in 2017 by Bo Wei Wang, who is originally from Beijing in China. So he'd been a home brewer for a number of years before founding the brewery, and the name of the brewery Overtone is taken from his love of techno music, and this is the kind of influence behind the little circle roundel type things you'll see on the majority of Overtone Brewing's art there. I know Peter, the Clueless Drinker, is a massive fan of these, but they remain me of the kind of electronic patterns that you see at techno raves and all this kind of stuff. But pretty cool, I have to say. But in the early days, Bo Wei hired Dan Miller to come in as his head brewer. He's from New Hampshire in New England in the northeastern US, and he previously worked as a head chef and also as a brewer in England, New York in the US, and then he worked as well in Scotland for 6 Degrees North. But also involved at the brewery is Martin Conahan. He worked in the craft beer scene down in New Zealand for a good little while. He does take part in the brewing a little bit from what I understand, but he's mainly doing business development and things like that these days. But they've also got Charlie Irving in the brew team now, and he comes from a background of home brewing and had previously worked for another local brewery in Glasgow too. But the brewery itself can be found in the New Albion Industrial Estate in Yoker near Renfrew and Clydebank, and they began their operations there back in 2018. But the brewery of course don't have a kind of fixed range of beers. They do lots and lots of different things. They release a good 4 or 5 beers a month, probably more than that actually these days. But they were the first Scottish brewery to really focus on the New England hazy as their core style. Now, for me, this brewery really kind of started to gather pace when their beers went down to England a little bit, and they became more well known down there. And that's when they really started to get on the hype train. That's when everyone was starting to talk about Overtone Brewing. But I think I tried their beers maybe about a year or so before that happened actually, and the very first one was the Rwandan Coffee Press IPA, which was absolutely lovely. But yeah, these guys very solid in the New England Hazy category. In more recent years they've been developing different lagers and imperial stouts, doing a little bit of barrel aging, also working on some sour beers as well. But over the years they've continued to expand the brewery infrastructure. They do open up a kind of tap room on site every so often too, from what I understand, and as of July 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced just over 160 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and they will no doubt continue to add to that as time goes on. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Overtone Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on with this one then and have a wee look at it. So I'll let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one again before we open up. You can see it's got that lovely kind of roundel there, but the light isn't enjoying, or the camera isn't enjoying this one so much because of the light. Doesn't seem to like the white colour, to be honest. But yeah, 440ml can, this one. You can see plain silver top there. I actually can't remember how much I paid for this one. It might have been about £3.50 or something like that. So that translates to roughly like €4, something like that. 40 Swedish kroner, about $4.50 American, something like that, if I'm remembering the exchange rates right. But yeah, 4.5% Czech lager. This one, and it is listed specifically as a Pilsner. So remember, the Pilsner as a style comes from the Czech city of Pilsen in the south of the country. It was created in around the 1840s, if I remember correctly, by a Bavarian brewer who came to the city. He wasn't very well liked, so he was thrown out 2 years later, and that beer is of course the famous Pilsner Urquell. But yeah, the Pilsner usually quite a nice bitter crisp lager, and remember the technical definition of a lager is a beer that ferments using bottom fermenting yeast at low temperatures, usually 8 to 12 degrees Celsius. You do get a little bit of difference between the Czech Pilsners and the German ones in my experience. The German ones tend to be very kind of clean and crisp, whereas the Czech ones still have the kind of crispy and bitterness, but they have a little bit more of an almost like creamy, bready, yeasty sort of thing to them. So yeah, that is subjective, of course. You will get clean ones in Czech Republic too, but generally speaking, that's been my experience so far. But yeah, this one, as we say, it comes in at 4.5% ABV, which is appropriate considering Pilsner Urquell is like 4.4, and the hops used in this one are Hersbrucker from Germany, and they've also got some Sats in there from the Czech Republic too, or Žatec as they call it. So yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. The Czech Yersel, a 4.5% Pilsner lager. So let's do this. Let's have a wee look at this one. So that's that. Anyway, as you can see, this beer is poured pretty much as you would expect of a of a Pilsner lager. It looks really, really nice actually. So yeah, before the head disappears on this one, you can see that it's poured with about just under a finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head there. You can see there's some medium-sized bubbles just sitting above the surface of the liquid, but lovely little kind of foamy bubbles as you go further up, and it's got a little bit of bumpiness to it as well. But yeah, in terms of the colour of this beer, it's got that lovely kind of pale golden straw colour to it. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, but a few little ones going up toward the base of the head there. But yeah, it looks really nice. A little bit of natural haze to this beer as well, and I think Pilsners are always better when they're unfiltered actually. But yeah, it does look as you'd expect. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put in will affect the colour of your beer too, but you don't often have to care about that when it comes to different types of lager, to be honest with you. It's only really Icebox and stuff like that, and maybe some Doppelbox that they tend to barrel age them and sometimes put adjuncts in. But yeah, Not so much in Germany and Czech, to be honest with you. But yeah, this beer looks, as I say, pretty much as you would expect of the Pilsner style. I think we can move on and have a wee look at the aroma and see what it's all about. So, let's do this. Oh yeah, aroma-wise, that's pretty damn good. What I've said on the channel before when it comes to these styles is that what I look for in these is that if it's brewed in another country, I want them to be close, I want them to be authentic, and that's maybe slightly different to the more kind of modern American beer styles. What I want from these kind of lager beers is for them to be authentic and close to what you would actually get in Czech, Germany or Austria or wherever, and I can tell you straight away from the aroma of this one, it's going to be pretty good actually. This will be very authentic. It's, you know, it really does give you that, just everything you'd want from the style. You've got that lovely little bit of crispness in there, you've got a wee bit of breadiness, nice kind of floral aromatic sort of thing, and also just a wee touch of kind of fruity character as well. So yeah, that one's really quite nice actually. The way it goes together it is great. It really is a very nice, I think this one's going to be a very nice example of this style. So let's just break that aroma down for you a wee bit and describe it more in depth. So the backbone of the beer, absolutely you have a little bit of that, absolutely you have a little bit of that kind of fresh white bready character just coming out of this one. In terms of the backbone, it's like a fresh white bready bread crust. There's a little touch of woodiness in there as well, but that's very, very minimal. Above the kind of fresh white bready bread crust, there's a little bit of like Jacob's cream cracker or something like that. So yeah, lovely like kind of bread crusty character, Jacob's cream cracker sitting above that, which is great. And then yeah, the way that that pieces together, I think, is really very, very nice. So for me, the yeah, for me, the sort of I would say the kind of crispness that you get in the malt base of this is really quite nice. So above the cracker, you get you do get a little tiny touch of like a wholemeal brown bready character. I'm curious to see whether that will come out in the flavour or not. But yeah, above the cracker, you've got this lovely fluffy white bready note coming out of the beer, which I think is really quite nice. I love that about this beer. In the top of the nose, you can absolutely get a little bit of that kind of crisp, dry character that you do expect of Pilsner malt, but above the fluffy white bread you get some of the kind of sweeter aspects that you would associate with Pilsner malt too. So for me, with this beer, it does have quite a little bit of yeasty character to it as well. There is a little very slight touch of kind of like farmhousey, kind of woody crackery character in the back of the nose with this one from the yeast, but you also have that little bit of kind of sweet McVitie's digestive biscuity character coming out of this one, which is really nice. So yeah, for me, I would say the sort of the sweetness you get out of this one, it is mainly like a light kind of crisp McVitie's digestive biscuit, but this beer doesn't have so much of that kind of sweetness to it. Sometimes you get pilsners that are really quite sweet, but this one isn't. This really is very crisp and very light in that kind of regard. The malty base in this one's really interesting, but I think that's everything we can really say about it, to be honest. I think we're only at more complexity out of the malty and yeasty side of this beer when we actually taste the thing. So let's have a wee look at the hoppy side of the beer then. So for me, hoppy side is quite interesting because for me there's quite a bit of a difference between the German noble hops and the Czech noble hops. The German ones for me are quite bright in their grassy and floral character, but very smooth in the kind of herbal and earthy side of things, whereas the Czech hops are quite, they've got an almost kind of spicy floral character and a little bit of a, pardon me, zesty sort of thing going on. They're just a bit more pungent than the German ones, but we've got a combination of German and Czech hop in this one. and you can smell that, to be honest with you. So you do get the little bit of smooth earthiness and the little bit of herbal character from the German Hersbrucker. Hersbrucker, I believe, is a Hallertau variant from Bavaria, not a Tettnang. But yeah, the nice kind of big floral aromatic character coming out of this one has a combination. You can smell that kind of brighter character from the German side, but you do get the spiciness in there in the top of the nose from the Czech side of things too, which is really interesting. So yeah, the way that that pieces together in this one is quite interesting too. But yeah, beyond that, you've got a lovely little bit of a kind of zesty or grassy character coming out of the beer, which sort of lingers there. And on the fruity side of things, the way it goes, the fruity side of things is kind of what you'd expect too. It's got a little bit of it has got a tiny little bit of like sultana, a little tiny bit of pear, but for me I get quite a little bit of like a fresh green apple and kind of slightly gooseberry-ish note out of this one. The fruity, yeah, gooseberry, fresh green apple, a little bit of pear and dry sultana kind of backing that up. I think it goes together really nicely, to be honest with you. Yeah, aroma-wise, I think this beer is really quite interesting. So yeah, let's piece this together then, and just, well, as I always say, brain isn't working tonight, a little bit tired. As I always say, take a wee bit of time to ponder over the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I will say, from what I've smelt with this one, this is going to be pretty damn authentic, and that is exactly what I want from a style like this, a Czech style Pilsner. So yeah, do that, as I say. But let's get stuck into this one then. This is the Czech Yersel, a Pilsner at 4.5% ABV with a little bit of German hop, a little bit of Czech hop, coming in from Overtone Brewing Company in Yoker through in Glasgow. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. That's really nice. That is very good. First impression of it is, it's a very smooth Pilsner actually. I would say that. Yeah. Really nice, very, very smooth Pilsner. This one for me. You can feel that the bitterness in this builds up the further into the aftertaste that you go. You really, yeah, you have to let this one kind of just sit on your palate a wee bit and just let the aftertaste come out for it to really show you the kind of dry, crisp and bitter side of the Pilsner style. But it's a very, the base of this one, the malty base and the yeasty side of things in this beer is really very, very smooth, and I like how that goes together. It's a big thumbs up from me. Yeah. So, for me, I would say it's a really nice one. As I say, it's very authentic. It's a bit hard to, I'd say it's more Czech than German, to be honest with you, which makes sense from the name. And the reason I would say that is that it has this kind of more yeasty and bready quality that lingers there, and I like that about this one. It does show you a little bit of the kind of drier elements of the German Pilsner as well, though, I would say. But all in all, it's a nice beer. It is authentic. It has everything I would want. So let's just break this beer down and describe it a little bit more in depth, as we always do. So we'll go to the middle third of your palate then. The backbone of this beer, you've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust just forming the backbone of the beer. So that sits there. Further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little touch of a kind of woody character to this one. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust, little touch of a kind of woody sort of thing, and yeah, above, like beyond that, you get a little bit of kind of Jacob's cream cracker going in there, and those things, yeah, the bread crust, the wood, the Jacob's cream cracker, that's really forming the backbone of your Pilsner beer. And that's great. Above that, it's interesting because there's a little bit of layered breadiness coming out of this beer too. For me, you have a very slight layer, a very thin layer of like a wholemeal brown bready character, which just sits on top of that cracker there, and you do get a wee bit more of that the more that you drink of the beer and the further into the aftertaste that you go. It becomes that little bit more obvious. But above that, you start to get a fluffy, you get the fluffy white bready character there, which is nice and light and airy, to be honest with you. It has a little slight touch of sweetness to it, which again, you get more and more of the further into the aftertaste that you go. But it takes, this beer I think takes a little bit of time just to show its true colours, to be honest with you. And I like that about this one. The layers that this beer has is really quite nice. So on top of the white bready character, you do get a little bit of a more of a, I would say, you can feel there's a little bit of the crisp Pilsner malt there, particularly toward the back of that middle third of your palate. So, yeah, toward the back of that middle third of your palate, you get a lovely you do get that lovely kind of crisp Pilsner malty kind of dryness in there. But above the kind of bready layer, if you go to the middle of your palate, you can feel there's like a little circle there, and in the dead centre of that circle, you have a wee touch of more. Yeah, I'd say you've got a little touch of a more. You've got a wee tiny hint of like honeycomb or something in the middle of your palate, or a concentrated biscuit, but as you move further out from that, you get a wee bit more of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing to it, which I think is really good. So, in terms of the the malty side of things, to be honest, and that middle third part, I'm just thinking about it, seeing how it develops. I don't think there's too much else to say about it, really. You do get, like I say, more of the kind of Pilsner malty dryness coming out of the beer, a little bit of the brown bready character coming out of this too, but I think that covers the middle third of your palate. As I say, a little bit of a concentrated biscuit in the centre of your palate, then as you move further out from that, it gets a wee bit more, it does get a little bit more kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity like. So yeah, I like how that one pieces together actually. The way that that goes together, I think is really nice. So let's go on to the back third of your palate then. As I've often said, the back third of your palate is going to give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate. They just come out in different intensities. But remember that general trend with your palate, that the kind of sweeter flavours will come out further forward, the more dry and bitter flavours will come out further back. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there. You can feel there's a little touch of the brown bread at the bottom, but then it's the fluffy white bread in the middle and the kind of crisp Pilsner malt sitting on top of it. And then yeah, the way everything goes together in that one is really quite nice. So yeah, I like that about this. I do like that about this beer. The way that the kind of malty side of things, just the border region pieces together. But yeah, on the back third of your palate, as I say, you've got similar flavours. You can feel that the bread crust is really quite dry in the base. Then above that, you've got the Jacob's cream crackery type note coming out of this one, which again is quite dry and crisp. Then you've got a wholemeal brown bready there, which feels a little bit lighter and a little bit more airy. Then above that, you've got the fluffy white bready layer coming out of the beer, which I think is really quite nice. And some of the kind of crisp, dry Pilsner malt just creeps over the top of that, and you do get quite a bit of that Pilsner malty, dry, crisp character on that back third of the palate. Above everything else, though, you start to get the yeasty notes coming out of the beer, and for me, the yeasty side of things is quite nice and light and airy. So that nice kind of light, airy sort of thing that this beer has is really quite interesting. I would say that it's the yeasty character in this beer. It's like a slightly more dense mix of white and brown bread. You get a little bit of a, as I say, you get a little bit of a kind of more farmhousey, woody type quality coming out of the beer as well. And yeah, I do like that. As I say, I do quite like that with this one, the kind of woody farmhousey sort of thing, lovely and crisp. And then you have, like I say, you've got this dense thing. It's almost just wrapped in honeycomb a little bit. I always get a little bit of honeycomb in that back third part. So you have dense, kind of white brown bread in there, a little bit of honeycomb matched around it, and then you've also got a little touch of the kind of woody, crackery sort of thing coming out of the beer. So yeah, I think the way this one goes together is really quite nice. So yeah, in terms of the back third of the palate, I think that's everything we need to say there. The only other thing I would add is that you can feel the back third of your palate, the flavour is taller, then as you come further forward into that middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, I do like how that pieces together. On the hoppy side of things then, the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it's got a little touch of herbal character, and as you push toward the front corners of the tongue, you do get a little bit more of a kind of floral, aromatic sort of thing coming out of this one. So, yeah, lovely little bit of floral aromaticity coming out of this one, which is great. And this, you can feel the mix of the kind of bright floral aromaticity from the Hersbrucker and also the more kind of spicy sort of thing from the Czech Yersel in there. But around the front curve of your palate, you can feel the beer's a little bit lighter and more grassy, and it's a wee touch sort of zesty. So yeah, again, I quite like how that goes together. In terms of the hoppy, in terms of the front third of your palate, then we'll move on to the kind of fruity side of things. That border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of bready build up in there. You can feel the sweeter brown bread in the base and the kind of white bread on top of that. Then the base of that front third of your palate, nice little bit of bread crust, Jacob's cream cracker, and then a wee mix of white bread and brown bread. And above that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll the way out of the beer. So for me, that is really quite nice again. So that gets a thumbs up from me. But yeah, in terms of the fruity side of things with this beer, it's quite interesting. It is kind of what I predicted from the aroma actually. At the back of that front third of your palate, you get a little touch of a white green grapey sort of thing in there. It's a little bit drier, but then you do have a nice little bit of kind of citrusy character in there too. So you have dry white green grapes, sultanas, as I say. As you move further forward, you get a little touch of kind of peary character. But then, yeah, as you move toward into the front half of that front third of your palate, there's a little bit of a kind of gooseberry sort of thing going on, and yeah, it's a little bit gooseberry-like. And then, yeah, there's a wee bit of like a limey character just behind the just behind the kind of front tip of your tongue as well. So yeah, the way that the beer goes together in this one, I think, is really quite nice. I do like how this beer goes about its business. Yeah, interesting stuff, I have to say. Yeah, I like that. I do like that with this one. But yeah, the fruity character, really, the more you drink of it, the more it leans toward that lemon-limey sort of thing, actually, which is interesting. But I think that's everything we really need to say about the flavour of this beer, to be quite honest with you. I think we can round off this review with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So, for me, the beer is pretty light-bodied, which is what you expect from a Pilsner, of course. The carbonation is very crisp. It feels really nice and clean, actually. As I've said many a time, we're very proud of our tap water here in Scotland. It has that typical Scottish water cleanliness to it, I would say. In terms of IBUs, I think this is a standard 30. It could be a little bit higher than that, like 35 or 40. That wouldn't surprise me, to be honest with you. But the bitterness in this beer does build the further into the aftertaste that you go. It does get more and more bitter. You do get some dryness from the malty base as well, which makes it feel a little bit more bitter. But the malt base, as I said, a little bit of kind of bread crust underneath, the smoothness in the middle, little touch of sweetness on top. But yeah, the Pilsner malt, as I say, comes out the further into the aftertaste you go. So this beer gets more and more bitter and slightly drier the further into the flavour that you go. The fruity side of things really takes a back seat compared to other parts of the beer as well. You just get a little bit of that kind of fresh green apple and gooseberry type note coming out of this one, linger on that front tip of the tongue, maybe a very slight hint of like a limey character too. But yeah, for me, quite an authentic Czech Pilsner. This one, or just a Pilsner lager, however you want to term it, is pretty damn authentic, this, and I think Overtone have done quite a nice job of this. You can see that with Overtone, when they move to a style outside of the kind of New England side of things, as they do more versions of it, it gets better and better, because this is a lot more kind of authentic than the... Was it the Mandarina? It was a Mandarina Helles, I'm pretty sure, was the last lager that I tried from these guys, and it was nice, but it just wasn't so. You could just tell it was a bit more raw and not quite as refined. They've got this one down pretty nicely, in my opinion, at the moment. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. But I think we can leave it at that for this one. I'm curious to try some more lagers from Overtone as time goes on. But yeah, this was the Czech Yersel, a 4.5% Pilsner lager from Overtone in Yoker through in Glasgow. Really authentic, really nicely done. I cannot complain about this one. This is going to be nice to finish off, but as I say, it takes a little bit of time to show its true kind of Pilsner character. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Overtone Brewing Company as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out Overtone's social media, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Ciao just now.